Okay, so welcome to part 2. I'm going to do, as you can see, I've done some extra bits. I've done the beak, put in a little fancy little bit of fabric in there just to give it a bit of a lift. I'm now going to start doing this white area. Now I could fill this with one piece of white fabric quite easily, quickly. But thinking about it, I'm going to do some fairly big, bold bits in the background. So they're going to be like one piece of the whole thing going across there. So in order to make this just a little bit more interesting, I'm going to use like a sort of scrappy technique. So what I do is I'm going to draw around this whole piece. There's going to be white. I've done this before on videos, so you might know what I'm going to do. Okay, and I'm going to cut that out just to make it easiest. The thing with fabric collage is you just have to think ahead a little bit and look at your pattern and look at the colours and just make sure, especially when you're doing something that's got sort of similar colours. So we've got white and then we've got a pale grey going here. So I need to make sure that I keep this really bright white, if that makes sense. Yes, I can add some patterns in there, but nothing too much that's going to take away from the bright colour of it, bright white colour, because the next colour underneath it is going to be a pale grey, and I want that to stand out as much. Don't want the colours to sort of muddy together too much, if that makes sense. Okay, so that is that shape. And then all I'm going to do is use all my scraps, and I'm going to literally just cut them into bits, stick them onto this bit of parchment. Scissors stuck together. Any which way, doesn't matter. See if I can't get that off. Let's just do it down a bit more. There we go. Just going to take off, I've just got a few wispy bits on there, so I'm just going to take them off. It doesn't matter what the shape is. And I'm just going over, completely over the edge of the piece of parchment that I've cut out, because I'm going to go back round it and cut it out again, and that'll give me a nice crisp line. I do want a few little bits of pattern, so I'm going to use smaller bits, nothing too big, and just, you know, don't make it too uniform. So just add a few of these little bits in, just to bring it to life a little bit. And one thing to note is when you're looking like through the light box and everything, you can see the overlap underneath. But just remember, when you come to sandwiching it up, you're not going to see that overlap, because it's only the light that creates that look of an overlap. So once that light is taken away with a sandwich, or even in, you know, another piece of fabric underneath, if you're doing it that way, you don't want to puff it up too much, but you're not going to see those overlaps, so don't worry. I've just put that bit on. You can't see it unless I put it, and it's got a big overlap over here, but you won't see it, so don't get overly fussed about that sort of thing. So I just tend to put my straight edges underneath the you can see it comes together pretty quickly. Not as quickly as just cutting the whole piece out, but it's not that time consuming. These bits up. And this is the kind of the beauty of using parchment paper, because it's just so flexible to do this sort of thing. This would be much harder if you were gluing. Got a bit of dog hair in there as well. Or is it? No, it's not dog hair, it's a bit of cotton. It's quite a lot of cotton. Okay. Right, nearly there. Right, so just got a little gap there, but I can just fill it in with the bits that I cut off. So we'll take that bit off, straight off, and then where was it, over here? Cut back round it. It's going to give me a really nice crisp edge. Okay, I'm not getting rid of these bits because I can use them on any other white areas. I think there's a bit on the leg, isn't there? Just peel it back off of here. I've got a bit of stuck. Yeah, and then that is just going to sit into that space. Because I want to try and keep it white, I'm just going to right, now the only trouble with this light box I find is that colours are not terribly true when you look at it. So I'm just going to turn it off for a second so you can see. There we go. You get a bit of a better idea of how that looks. There we go. All any rubbish. Yeah, so the other white bit, really white bit, apart from there's a strip across the head, but I'll do that in one bit, is that bit there. So we'll just do exactly the same thing, just use all these scraps up that we've cut off the other piece. Yeah, you need to cut that out. I can just going to take that off of there. Oh yeah. Okay, and I can still see. off carefully because it is a bit on the fragile side, and then that can go straight into place. That's all those white bits done. So now the question is, do I do the same with the grey, or do I put a whole piece? And whether I'm actually going to use grey. Let's just have a look in my grey drawer and see what I've got that might work. It's got to be a fairly big bit. That's quite nice. I'm just going to lift this up. Maybe a little bit too linear. This. That's quite nice. Quite like that. Could just have a very plain grey. That's quite boring, but I might use that elsewhere. This is going to be, that's too dark. Again, I'll probably use that elsewhere. This might be quite interesting. Yeah, I quite like that. That's quite cool. Yeah, we'll go with that. So we just want to cut out one big piece of that. So this was out of a sample book, and it's like a linen type. I suppose it's curtain material really. And I like using all sorts of different textures and weaves. I think it makes it kind of interesting. And I'm not too worried about how flat a piece looks, because I suppose because all mine go on the wall, it's not that much of a worry that if things are not quite as flat, if you know what I mean. So it's something slightly different thickness. I quite like that. It sort of adds to the dimensions of it and the depth of the piece. But I guess if you're doing something for a quilt, you kind of want everything to be the same thickness. But that's not what I do. I do pieces of art. There we go. Get that out of the way. Yeah, I really like that. It's pretty cool. And I think what I'm going to do is just fill in that gap. Probably with that. That's quite nice as well. Let's draw it out. This isn't even a picture parchment paper, it's what's come off the back of the Bondo web, so you know, make sure you use all the bits you can. Especially if you've got light box, because you can see through much better. There you go. Maybe use that across here, because that can be a bit more linear, because it's starting to look like, you know, more of a wing rather than a breast, if you see what I mean. So yeah, let's use that across there. It's got definite direction to it, so we just need to make sure that we continue that direction when we cut it out. So I don't want it going down like that, so where should we put it? Maybe up here. That's quite nice. It's a bit of a shame it's right in the middle of it, but I'm sure those other bits will come to use. Holding it nice and tight so it doesn't move around too much. You can always unpeel it from the back and stick it on the back to cut it out. That stops it moving completely. Now this piece here is in the same colour as that, so I can just use that again. See, this pattern comes together pretty easy because it's, apart from the eye and maybe a bit around the feet, it's quite big pieces, so pretty easy to go at. Just choose where a bit of white on it. Yeah, that's nice, and I can go from here. And there we go. So let's turn it off. So that's what we've done today. So I'm going to carry on with the rest of the body. And perhaps we'll come back and do the feet, because that's really the only other tricky out bit. The rest of it's pretty simple. And the body will come together pretty quickly. Okay, so bye for now.